Hey guys, it's your buddy Choppadong here, and this is a week 6 preview, week 5 rewind, whatever you want to call it. We're not going to go player by player. I want to show you as VIPs the results of my player pool, kind of where it fit in the contests around the industry. Because it had a bad week, but it showed me something really, really good, something that we can adjust for going forward. So let's kind of dive in because I talk a lot about building a red circle, yellow circle player pool, not very many blue circle GPP only plays because we're not trying to win those contests. We're trying to win cash games, triple ups, quintuple ups, 100-man leagues. But I got to make a change there because the lineups I produced this week, some of them showed me something very, 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 very good going forward. As a general rule, though, we don't need those freaky plays. And we say that that limits our upside to where we can't win big tournaments. Well, let's go take a look because it was a disaster on FanDuel. If I look at my 100-man leagues, I built 28 of those lineups. And this is where I'm just going to ask you to trust me. I don't have this shown on my phone where I can quickly scroll through and show you all of the results. I just have to write them down and tell you. But for credibility's sake, I don't think I cashed any I had a 13th, but I don't think I cashed any in the top 12% last week. This week, out of 28 lineups, 0 cashed. But they did well, if you can see by the 30% here, they did still do fairly well if we add up the percentile of finish, okay? 0 made the top 12%. And I mean, why would I lie to you and tell you that? If I lied to you, I'd tell you how much money I won, right? So, I mean, I'm as transparent as they come. I try to tell you the good and the bad. When the good happens, I want you to believe me. And when the bad happens, I want you to believe that it happens to me too. It happens to all of us. And when I tell you it'll turn around, it'll get better, I want you to believe me. It will turn around. It will get better. Now, out of those 28 lineups, only six made the top 20%. None made the top 12%. Okay, nothing cash, but 6 did make it in the top 20%. Those would have won quintuple ups. One more made it in the top 30%. That's 7 that would have made triple ups, and then another 8 made the top 50%. That's 15 that would have made 50/50s or double ups. So 15 of the 28 would have done well in cash games. So even with the bad results, we were okay for cash games. Now, I'm not backing any of these up with cash games because I'm trying to show you how to build a large sample size, and I'm trying to take every dollar that I would invest and put it in these dollar 100-man leagues because I know I'm going to win a couple of them along the way, and I want to get paid 25 bucks when it happens instead of have it backed up in cash and only get $2 back. I don't mind riding that variance train. I personally believe that MME is the way to go over making just a few lineups and playing cash games. Why? I believe it further diversifies your player pool, and you're going to see why here in a minute. I believe that more lineups is better. Instead of $10 on 10 lineups, $1 each, I'd rather make 100 lineups for dimes. Because if I've got the right player pool, it just takes the right combination of those players. And the combinations of 30 players, 40 players, is still darn near infinite. It's way more than 100 possible combinations of all of those players. But if the player pool is correct and produces good results, then the winning combination is in there. How often am I going to pick it if I only build one lineup? I'm going to pick it more often if I build 10, 50, 100, 1,000 lineups. I just have to balance my contests going forward to make sure that when I do hit one really, really well, it has potential to pay everything off. And then some, because that's how you're going to grind up money. And then we're going to go for the win. How do we go for the win in a cash safe player pool? We correlate, we stack, we game stack, we secondary stack. We run all sorts of crazy funky combinations of stuff in there. It's a cash safe player pool. These players all have a floor. Because they have a floor and they are in high upside matchups, they're fine. Get funky with them if you want to. If you're chasing some of these bigger leagues, small GPPs, even bigger GPPs, get funky with it. Okay? Now, if you're playing a 50/50, you don't need to cat. You can tone down the stacking. If you're playing a triple up, you can tone down the stacking. But if you're playing a 500 person or 10,000 person GPP, even with this player pool, you got to stack it. You got to correlate those lineups. You got to parlay those points. Okay? So hopefully that turning a light bulb on for some of you guys, because this is very much how I play. Now, over on the DraftKings side, we did well. We produced 77 lineups. And we got a second place out of 475 people. That's a top 1% lineup. It's in the top 4.7, players of 475. We got a 10% or 10th place lineup that's top 2%. We got a few others that did well. These 400 place tournaments that paid good are in. Actually, I got accidentally registered for a 2,900 person event. I tried to tone that down because I didn't think my lineups could produce lineups good enough to win those tournaments. But as you'll find out next, we lied. I lied to myself. Now, second place is good. Unlock 750 on the quarter. That pays for a lot, right? That covers a lot of butts. But in this 77 tournaments, or 77 lineups, 1 got in the top 1%, 3 in the top 5%, 6 in the top 10%, 8 in the top 20, another 8 in the top 30%, and 15 in the top 50%. That's not 15 out of 77. That's 15 lineups that only finished between the top 50 and top 30. Okay? If you add it all up, it's 44 lineups, 41 or 44 lineups that made it into the top 77. 41 or 44 out of 77 lineups that made it into the top half. More than half of my lineups, more than 35, more than 40 of my lineups made it into the top half, so we did fine for cash games. We did run one deep. That covered up a lot of butts on the min caching, but the point is, this is how I play the MME, because I diversify my lineups and got a good combination here. Okay. Now, if I go back to FanDuel for a second and show you the nickels that I ran, because here's what I was doing before. I was taking these lineups. I was running 15 Ben Roethlisberger lineups and handpicking 1 or 2 because I only wanted 1 or 2 lineups from him out of my 28. And then I ran, wanted like 10 or 12 Patrick Mahomes and wanted 30 Dax and I wanted 4 or 5 Daniel Jones. And so I was running the optimizer that way. And where it messed me up was controlling my exposures to my players. I went back and I double checked. How much James Conner do I have? How much Mike Davis do I have? Because I was noticing I wasn't getting them in a lot of lineups, and I wanted to double check and make sure they were actually in 30% of my 28 lineups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, managing my player pool. And it was working out just fine, except for one player, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I neglected him for whatever reason, ended up with 80% of him. Have no idea how. But 80% of him, and he had a bad day. If he'd had a good day, I'd be talking about what a genius I am. But he had a bad day, and he tanked a ton of my lineups. Not all of them, but he tanked a ton of my lineups. I was overexposed. And I try to avoid that when it comes to these lineups too, because I'm trying to spread out. I'm trying to diversify. I'm trying to mitigate risk. I'm trying to make sure that I search out unique combinations. My brain will get married to players that I think are in smash spots. Dak. Smash spots. Edwards-Helaire. And I will take 60 and 70% of them sometimes, and I need to cut that back to about 50% or so. It's okay to take a lot of them, but I don't need to take so much that they critically sink my week when they have bad days, because they have bad days. They do. I want you to see a little bit of the correlation of these lineups too as we go, because as I pushed these, before I did the 28 lineups that did bad, I put, I don't know, 80 or 100 in the nickels, and those lineups did well. And I used the same player pool. I unchecked everybody and checked back the players that were my red and yellow circle plays. Look, just a couple of lineups for example. Ben Roethlisberger, James Robinson, Mike Davis, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, George Kittle, Amari Cooper, and I didn't have a lot of Amari Cooper. Arizona Cardinals did poorly. 511,000 out of 662, not even close to the cash. Same player pool as this one that did well, got into the top, 2-3%. Patrick Mahomes, Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, Sammy Watkins, Darius Slayton, CeeDee Lamb, Darren Waller, Ezekiel Elliott. Look, this is Mahomes with Watkins, run back with Waller. Slayton and Zeke, or Lamb and Zeke, run back with Slayton. Secondary stack, one off Drake, one off Gurley, one off Rams defense. Produced a good score, produced a good result. Would have demolished cash. It's a cash safe player pool. This is a cash safe player pool. It didn't do well. This is one that did do well. Okay, do you understand that it's about the player pool that we select, and it's just from then on, it's just the combinations that you get in there? So what you should be doing is taking a lot of lineups out of that and trying to hit the right combination, because that player pool will produce winning combinations. If I look at this lineup here, and then I'll try and get out of here because I don't want to take too much time. But this lineup here, 1327 out of 662,000, right? 1327 divided by 662,965, top 0.2%. That's a GPP winner, folks. That thing can win 2,000 and 3,000 person tournaments. It got really close in 662,000 people. It's not supposed to do that with a cash safe player pool. It's supposed to cap out lower than that. But it got in there and it did well. Okay? And look, same player pool is a little bit different, but these are players that we mentioned we liked. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, run back with Jamison Crowder, Josh Jacobs, Sammy Watkins, mini stacked the Oakland Kansas City game. Stacked the other side of it though, the Josh Jacobs side. Hey, worked out. That was a little contrarian. Mike Davis, Schultz, and Lamb as a twofer. Ravens off defense as a one-off. This lineup did well. Okay, and it did well with 6%, 4%, 7%, 6%, 8% owned players. Those are low enough. One chalky play, Mike Davis. Another sort of chalky play in CeeDee Lamb. That's all. That was my cash player pool. I just got the right combination of players pulled out of it for this lineup. So again, instead of making 10 lineups for 10 bucks, I'd rather make 100 dimes. Because I'm going to get more shots. As long as one of those winners in the dimes pays me more than whatever I'm investing in the tournaments, I'm going to have to get deep almost every week. Otherwise, I'm going to be getting back about break even or a little bit less than break even. But I'm okay with that. If I put up 100 bucks and I get back $95, that's a $5 net loss. I'm not going to grind up much of a bankroll, but I'm not going to lose my bankroll either. And as we go through the weeks, I'm going to eventually hit that big price that pays me $400, $500, $600, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, and that's going to make up for all of the $5 losses. That's a bigger scale of it. If you want to play on a smaller scale like I do with Dickles, Nimes, and what would we call them? Quarters. I mean, that's fine. You want to play for some dollar 100-man leagues? I play those because I know I can win those, right? And I'm tracking percentages for you guys because it's easy on the math. But we're doing okay in the top 50% of stuff. We're struggling to get in the top 5 and top 1% right now. But what I saw this week that impressed me the most is this player pool, this cash safe player pool produces potential GPP winners. If you mitigate the risk and you diversify, it's why I'm a big proponent of MME these days. Cash games are great if you want to cut your teeth and try it out. But to me, cash games are not fun anymore. I am playing the MME stuff because when I can find them, the 475-man tournaments are great. I don't like playing 662,000 people, but it's cheap. I want to find, that's why I say MME those 100-man leagues for $1. But I want to find some that are a little bit smaller so that instead of spending $28, on 28 lineups, I can build 280 lineups of dimes, right? That's really what I'm after, or 100 and something lineups of quarters. That's what I'm really trying to do. It's what I would like to do. FanDuel doesn't let me do that. So as I go and as I try to get through these weeks, I'm going to adjust this style. And now that I know the cash player pool can produce some real deep runs in some other tournaments, we're going to really focus on this approach because I'm going to convince you that cash games are great if you're playing close to the vest and maybe you're a little timid or trying, but cash games aren't where it's at. You can play cash safe in big GPPs. Get most of your money back week after week after week. You can get most of your money back. And then you can have shots at a bigger price than $2 or $4 or $5 for a quintuple up or whatever. You've got shots at hundreds of dollars and even a couple of cases, a couple of $1,000. That's going to make you happier. You've got the floor with the upside, just like the player pool you're building. You're building with only players that have a strong floor and upside to do well. You're building your lineups and putting your lineups in contests that have a high floor, a high return on investment for most of your money, and upside to really do a lot of damage. So let's start talking week 6 here in a little bit. We'll start narrowing down player pools, and we'll get after it here in the Slack chat real quick. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you soon.